Here
Notice
we go.
that too.
Hello again, everyone. I am Dee. This is another episode of Spiritually Speaking. I have the beautiful Christy Holt with us today. And thank you, Christy, for being here with me today. And I'd love for you to tell us what you do.
Hi, Dee. Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to dive into this conversation. But yes, first, a little bit about who I am and what I am up to in this world. As you said, my name is Christy Holt. I call myself the Happiness Hussy. That is because I'm on a mission to spread happiness across the world. I truly believe that happiness, peace, love, joy is our intended state of being. And I just want to help as many humans recognize and remember this state of wholeness that already exists within them. Other labels that I could go by are podcast host. I have my own podcast called Cree or Happy, largely speaking about relationships and essentially self-mastery is what it sort of boils down to, but also building that into relationship skills. I am also a best-selling author. I have a couple of books available on Amazon, including my own solo book, Unstuck for Women, and an anthology that I co-published, which has another piece of my story in it. And I also just love creating fun, different things. So I have some free meditations and sweary coloring books and all kinds of different things. I am also a mentor. I am a mom to 4 teenage boys. I am blissfully partnered to the most incredible human, and I'm so many things, really, but at the root of all of it is that I am love. That is what everything comes down to. And so if we strip away all of the labels that just really fall short of trying to explain who a person really truly is, I am left with this energy of love. And so I guess all of that to say, I have a lot of labels, and at the root of it all is this foundation of love.
Yeah, yeah, it really is everything. It really,
Yeah.
really, truly is. I was just having this kind of conversation with my friend earlier today about, and she's like, my name is blah, blah, blah. And, and I was like, yeah, but, and that still actually isn't you. That's just what people here call
Yeah.
you because we have to call each other something, right? So we'll know who we're talking to because we're not at that stage of, the kind of transcended communication at this
Yeah.
point. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. So I love
Yeah.
the
Language
happiness
is
hussy.
tricky.
It is tricky.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is tricky, because, like you call yourself the happiness hussy. Lots of people would think,
Yeah.
why would you call yourself a hussy of any sort? So,
I
how did you
know.
come up with that title?
Well, it's a little bit of a funny story. And it happened that my cousin and I were chatting. And she sort of jokingly teased me, saying, "Oh, you happiness hussy, you," in response to just me saying that I'm really positive and I like to really feel, like I'm encouraging people with the words that I put into the world. And she kind of teased me, like, "Oh, you happiness hussy, you." And I was like, "Oh, yes, that I am totally going to take that and run with it because yes, I am a hussy for happiness. I really want to spread that happiness far and wide because, like I say, I think that's how we're going to change the world by helping people to discover and create from within the happiness that they have been long for seeking outside of themselves in the world, just really seeking in the wrong places. And
Yeah.
it's really just an invitation to come back inwards to the truth, your truth, the truth that only can be found within instead of being distracted by all of those things out there. And so yes, it's a bit cheeky to say happiness hussy, and not everybody kind of loves that vibe, and that's okay because I am who I
Right.
am, and I am here with my unique message. Like I said, I'm a bit sweary, but not like I don't swear in a negative way. I just sometimes feel like sentences don't have enough zhuzh, and they just
Yes.
need a little bit more oomph put behind it. So when I find myself swearing, it's because I'm just like, I just really want to make, again, language is tricky, right? And so you can say something or like, oh, that didn't pack as much punch as I wanted it to. Like, let me zhuzh that up just a little bit. But nonetheless, language is so interesting because it can only kind of point to something. It can't actually help you to fully understand it. It's just giving you direction. And there are so many things, especially in this human experience, we're so complex and it's beautiful. I actually call it a messy fucking beautiful adventure because it is bit messy and complex in
Yes.
that way that we feel all of the things, and that's what makes it beautiful at the very same time.
Yeah.
Right? We can feel the joy and the grief and the anger and the sadness and the pain and the peace and all of those things within fractions of a second, or sometimes seemingly almost simultaneously. And I actually just went through this myself last week. I just had a lot in one week, and I was just reflecting on just experiencing the massive amounts of duality, the massive amounts of this depth of the human experience, feeling
Mhm.
celebratory and grieving in the same day, in the same moment, in the same instant, really. Like there just was so much going on. And it's hard to put sometimes these things into words because it transcends what limited ability we sometimes have with language to explain something. And so that's why I feel like it's so interesting to take the words and the understandings that we think we have and actually experiencing them. That's a whole nother level of embodiment, of understanding and discernment, and actually bringing that wisdom into your life. And that's, what I'm here to help people do, is to take those ideas. We often know what we ought to do. I'm not one to shit on people. There are no rules. The rules are all made up.
Right.
So you get to feel good, right? So let's do the things that will make you feel good. And people be like, "Oh, that's selfish." What of it? It's not bad to be
Yeah,
a bit self-centered and take care of yourself. It's in fact necessary, because you can't give to others what you don't have. And
exactly.
so there's a lot of this flipping these things on their head to really have this human experience. And that's what I believe we are. We're the divine having this human experience, this individuated, 1 in 8.1 fucking billion people. Like, does this not blow your mind that you are here? You woke up today
Yeah.
amidst, just one person shy of 8.1 billion other people, right? Or however the math works out. I think we're over 8.1 billion. Nonetheless, we're here. We're driving our cars around a spinning rock. Like, if that doesn't make you just pause and admire this messy, fucking beautiful adventure, I don't know what it will take. But to me, it is a wild and exciting ride, and I am here for all of it, which is why I don't shy away from those days where I'm really in the depths of the
Yeah.
human experience. My grandmother passed away. That was that, and then amongst a bunch of other things going on at the same time, just like there is just so much happening in this world, and there always is. It's very rare
Yeah.
we get to a time we're like, oh, well, absolutely nothing is happening. Everything is perfect.
Yeah.
If it ever does come to that, it doesn't last. So, it's so important to create and expand, to create space for all of the human experiences, right? Not shutting down the ones that we don't want because they're uncomfortable or they're just not our personal preference. Because the more we do that, the more we block all of the incredible experiences that are available to us. And that's kind of a shame. We're here for all of these experiences. That's taking that knowledge and actually living it with our five senses. That's literally what we're here to do.
Yeah. It's so true. And I'm so sorry about your grandmother, by the way. And it is tough, and I should say at the same time, she's having all the fun now. That's how I look at it too, and it doesn't mean that you don't hurt because you don't get to hug her in this
Yeah.
physical life anymore and things like that. And you miss those times of sitting and actually having a conversation like what we're having now. And it
Yeah.
changes into something different, right? That's been my experience with it, and cry when you feel sad about it, cry when you're,
Yeah.
reminiscing about something beautiful that happened between the two of you, and celebrate it at the same time, because now she's free in all of the ways that so many of us would like to be free, you know, and that is a piece of the human experience, like you said, and it can we can see the beauty in it, even though we're sad and we have all these emotions that are
Yeah.
associated with it.
I mean, grief is not really possible where there wasn't an immense amount of love in the first place, right?
Right.
That's why it hurts and why there's so much contrast. It's that contrast that makes that experience to whatever depth it is. And I believe that we are all one, that we're all connected.
Mhm.
We're all, drops of the ocean, but also simultaneously the ocean. So I don't believe she is gone far. If you know what I mean. I have a peace knowing that, although what I was most devastated was that I didn't get to go see her. I was supposed to go and see her that the next morning, and I missed my window. And so I was really feeling sadness around not having got there. But at the same time, I just truly believe everything is always working out
Yeah.
in the best possible way. And so I believe we're all one. I just have a comfort knowing that we're all connected and that she's not far.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of people experience a lot of uh guilt over situations like that because things happen.
Yeah.
The thing is, we give that meaning.
Mhm.
Your grandma, even though she's aware of it, there's no judgment there. There is only love. There is only that love that exists in that situation now on her part. I mean, that's the human factor where we're sitting here writing the story about, we could have done this, we should have done that, blah, blah, blah. And we can't go back and change it. So just allowing that love from her that exists to be what you experience now is really, really super important.
You're right. We do so often beat ourselves up over coulda, woulda, shoulda. Hindsight's 2020. Should have known better. Wish I'd done this differently, and so on. Like the stories we tell perpetuate our suffering,
They
and they're
do.
actually creating our suffering a lot of the times, because a lot of times what happens is we actually don't have the full picture, and we're actually basing our stories on a bunch of assumptions. We probably haven't inquired, did that other person actually mean that thing that we're assuming that it means about us?
Right.
Probably not. Most of the time, when other people engage with us, it's actually a more of a projection of their own inner world than it
Mhm.
is about what you are doing. And yet we put so much weight on ourselves with the guilt and the shame and the coulda, woulda, shoulda, and we should all over ourselves, and try and live up to all these expectations. And man, where is the opportunity when we are in that on that hamster wheel going to experience our intended state of peace, love, joy, and happiness? We don't see it. Right. And this is this thing about we're mistaking it. We think it's out there. We think if we just get the money, if we just go on the vacation, if we just line up the perfect partner, then we will finally have the experience that we're after. But it's all a distraction, because the experience that we're after is this one right here, right fucking now.
Yeah.
There isn't
Yeah.
there isn't one in the future that we can just set our sights on, and when I get there, then I'll be happy. If you don't know how to find and cultivate and create that happiness and build those experiences consciously, like intentionally, what you desire from within, if you don't know how to do that now, chances are in the future you won't be any better off.
Right.
So we really want to zone in on becoming present in this present now moment and cultivating those experiences, stripping away, because it's ultimately the guilt and the shame are learned behaviors.
Mm.
They're driven by the illusion of separation, that we are separate from and therefore can experience loss. And the one truth that can really unravel all of that is the remembrance that you're already whole,
Yes.
that you are perfectly imperfect, that there is there is nothing to feel guilty or shameful about. You're a human being. And this, I say this often, you're not broken. You don't need fixing. You're just a
Yeah.
human doing life. Life is gonna life. And the people around you they're gonna probably gonna people real hard. But
Some
you are
days.
already whole. You are already, right? You are equipped to deal with it. And the only time that we end up beating ourselves up is when we look back with this new information and look at ourselves with judgment. Because the flip side of that is compassion. And if we can look back and say, like, oh man, even if you're like, oh man, I really fucked that up. If we can give ourselves compassion, we can still look at that version of us that was doing the best that they could, made the best possible choice in that moment. Now we can see it didn't work out.
Right.
But that version of you couldn't see that from where they were standing. And so if you can give them the love and the compassion rather than the guilt and the shame, now guess what happens is you can learn from that experience.
Yes.
You're not clouded by the guilt and the shame that keeps you actually just stuck and mired in like that pile of shit. You can actually wipe it away. You can take the blinders off and you can see like, okay, well, now I can learn and I can do this differently moving forward. It really doesn't serve us to feel badly about these things. I mean, just like this tiniest bit, like, so that we're like, oh, well, whoops. Next time I may do that differently because it didn't work out. But somehow we've been led to believe that the guilt and the shame might motivate us into change. And I think there's a lot of pieces to this. This is something I talk to my kids a lot about because they really do think that if they just beat themselves up enough and shame themselves and criticize themselves, that they'll be better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at some point you just start to realize that actually doesn't work. All it
Yeah.
does is make me feel terrible about myself. And feeling terrible about myself is not really a place from which I feel super motivated to improve. Like you think maybe it will.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if I just hit complete rock bottom, then I will have to change. No, we just rehabituate and get comfortable at a newer low. And so if we're not intentional about shifting this, about this, and literally self-compassion is the catalyst to this growth, to this new perspective, to this ability to evolve and expand and learn and, use this wisdom. That's the piece that helps us to transform that wisdom. We're not going to go back. We can't, unfortunately, can't go back in time. We only have now. And the most powerful thing that we can do now is take the wisdom nuggets from those experiences. Hello, I've been through a handful myself. I have been through 2 divorces, and I can tell you a lot of things that I learned about myself during that process. I would never go back and change it. A lot of
Right.
people, reminisce and say, oh, like I wish I could go back and I would do this differently. And I just never say that I would ever go back because I recognize fully that who I am now is heavily dependent on every single one of those experiences that I have had leading up until
Yes.
this moment. And without them, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't even have the knowledge. So the whole thing really falls apart because what would I be going back to? I wouldn't even,
Yeah.
it would
Exactly.
be like completely erasing everything that I have been learning and building and growing on. So I just think there's a lot of space for evolution when we approach ourselves with a little bit more compassion. That really opens up our opportunity to really lean into the lessons that are there for us. And by shifting the perspective, a lot of people talk about healing. And like I said, like, I don't believe anyone's broken. I don't think you need fixing. So I don't love the word healing. And when people say, or when I say healing, I mean it differently than what a lot of people say healing, because it seems like there's this idea of like this endless healing and you keep regurgitating and you go through it and then you heal another layer and another level and then some more shit comes out. Then you got to talk about that. And then you got to figure out what's under the core of it all. I like to approach it from a slightly different perspective. And this is a lens of wholeness, that you're already whole,
Mhm.
that you don't need to fix anything or fill any gaps or, mend anything like that. You're already whole. And what that allows you to do is just start evolving, right? It allows you to stand in your power to choose which parts, because you're whole, you have everything,
Yeah.
which parts are going to be leading the show, right? And often our egos will run the show, and that's where this illusion of the separation really comes into play, right? Because the ego it's all about self-preservation, it's about survival, it's about the individual, the me, the I, whereas the truth is we're all one. And when we can operate from this lens of wholeness, of oneness, this unity of consciousness, we are so much more powerful. and we can actually live in our intended state. And again, you use whatever word resonates most for you, whether that's happiness, joy, love, peace, any of them. To me, this is why I say language is like,
Yeah.
I'm giving you a group of words because I want you just to feel it. It's not a
Yeah.
word, it's a feeling, it's an
It is.
experience, right? And so sometimes it can be so hard. It's like labeling God. Well, already you've like limited what can't be limited,
Right.
right? So language is tricky, but that intended state of just expansiveness, where there
Mm,
feels like there's endless abundance of overflow to give from within. And it feels like better than good, not just like good, it feels good. Like it feels like home, right?
yeah.
That's the experience ultimately, that is your natural state. It's all of these other things that are actually keeping you from and distracting you from just being in that state. There are those other things creating the suffering and the pain that
Mm,
further accentuates the separation, making it feel like a bigger chasm between you and other people. It's
right.
just illusion.
It is just illusion. I agree. And I'd like to go back to something you said about beating yourself up when you're in a place because
Yeah.
like we feel like we really need to do that. And if we do it profoundly enough, then we'll just kick our own asses hard enough that we're going to
Yeah.
propel ourselves forward. I would like to introduce a different wording of the same concept that you're talking about. And that is, we all love to be appreciated, right? So if you take the example of a person who is an employee, when they feel like their employer really appreciates them, they work harder. They work harder, they work
Yeah.
happier, they get more accomplished. They will go the extra mile a lot of times without even being asked. Don't we deserve to appreciate ourselves instead of beating ourselves up? Because wouldn't that be more beneficial? Wouldn't that make us want to move forward more confidently, even than
Yeah.
bashing ourselves to death?
Totally. I totally agree. And like I said already, you are one in 8.1 billion. Like if that already isn't enough basis for you to appreciate the sheer magic
Yeah.
that you are this special, you're a miracle. The fact that your
Yes.
heart is beating and your lungs are breathing and that you're out here driving around picking up your Starbucks or whatever you're doing. Like it's just, to me, it's all mind blowing. And if I take a moment just to appreciate the sun came up,
Yeah.
the warmth on my skin, like there is just like literally every moment something that you can be grateful in the world around you. But it is taking it one step further to say, like, I'm in this, I'm
Yeah.
here for a reason. It's not just a coincidence that I'm here having this experience. And even more powerfully, I can choose. And I
Yeah.
know sometimes it doesn't feel like you can choose. I have been there too. And I know that when you're really feeling the weight of that overwhelm and sometimes that guilt and that shame really pile on and you actually feel like you can't see choice. If you I felt very helpless and very hopeless
Yeah.
when I was in my second marriage. I just I, I lost track of who I was, I think, which was one of the biggest things. And this happens a lot in relationship, right? Because as women, especially, we're very much conditioned to serve other people at all costs.
Yeah.
And so for me, that showed up in people pleasing tendencies, perfectionist tendencies, just literally trying to make people around me happy. Now, I still want to make people around me happy. Of course, I want to spread this shit, like sprinkle it just everywhere. But I recognize now what I didn't totally recognize then. And I don't know how it took me so long. But like I say, blinders on. When we are in survival mode, we just are not thinking critically. Our brain systems literally are like on power save mode. We're like, you know what? This extra creative thinking, we're just going to set that aside because we need to not die right now. And
Right.
it's never actually as dire as like we're going to die right now, but our brain function thinks it is.
Yeah.
So when we're in that survival mode thinking, we're just honestly not tapping into our greatest resources.
Mhm.
And in fact, we're blinded and cut off from them, right? Further delved into this separation from self, from God, from the universe, from everything. We just think we're all alone in this. And that's where the guilt and the shame really, really like feel like they stack on. But
Yeah.
if we can get a handle on that, if we can start to see the miracle that we are, that we're here, we're existing and appreciating that we have a very specific experience to have, to create. We have a very specific message to share with other people. And if we can remember that all the things that we've gone through, it wasn't just to go through a shitty experience, it was for our learning and our growth, which I know it feels really terrible while you're like in it.
Mhm.
But if you look back, right? Don't look at the thing that you're in right now. Look to the evidence that you have from the other things that you've been through, that you survived, right? The hard things that you've overcome, and the lessons that you took away from those things that, like, oh my gosh, they nearly ripped you in half when you were experiencing it. But now you're looking back and you see things from a different perspective, an elevated lens, right? You're in like this upward spiral. So
Mhm.
even if you're starting to notice patterns showing up, repeating occurrences, you're like, well, don't love that.
Right.
There's still no need for beating yourself up, because actually the fact that you're becoming aware of these things is a huge gift. And as I said, you already have everything that you need in order to deal with it. You are perfectly equipped.
Yeah.
And if that, if that's not something to appreciate within yourself, I don't know what is. But just even being thankful for your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your ability to see, your ability to hear, your ability to touch and feel, your ability for your feet to take you on adventures. I just got back from 4 days in the mountains, and I went chasing some waterfalls. Despite what you may have heard, I definitely recommend you do it. Go chase the waterfalls. It's very soothing. I don't know what TLC was talking about. No, I think they were talking metaphorically, but actual waterfalls, go chase them.
Yes.
Definitely very soothing for the soul, and just having an opportunity to sometimes get away from the hustle and bustle of the everyday can help us to actually reconnect with that wholeness, with that truth within, with nature, capital N nature, God, source, universe, however you want to call it. Again, words
Yeah.
are just words. So, whatever your experience of this energy that sets everything in motion,
Yeah.
whatever the term is, it's irrelevant. It's whatever feels right within you. And so, having the space to reconnect is just so necessary. And it's the further you've been from it, you're like, there's something missing. There's like, I'm feeling like I need something. There's like this incongruence, this discomfort, this like feeling of stuckness. Like I need to, I should be somewhere else. I want to move somewhere else. I have to do something differently. And often we can't pinpoint it, but that's a really great place to start. It's
Mhm.
just coming back to that peace and that quiet within. And I think a lot of us really could be served well by taking a step away from the hustle and bustle of every day,
Mhm.
even if it's just for a day, without the Wi-Fi signals, without the phone calls, without the notifications, with no agenda, with nowhere to fucking rush off to,
Yeah.
right? Where there's no things to do or people to see or anything like that, just to set it all down for a minute and experience your intended state of peace, love, joy, happiness. That way you can take that back with you. You just feel a little closer to it. It's more fresh in your experience so that you can live in that moment as much as possible, even though the people are peopling, and the crazy things in life are happening all around you. You are then just so much more able to navigate all of the chaos with confidence and with grace and with love, keeping you a little closer to that intended state.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend unplugging. I do it as often as possible. Some might say I do it too much, but that's okay. They're allowed to think whatever they like, and
Yeah,
I
let
think
them.
it's super important because when you shut off all that noise, or you go to a space where you're not able to hear that noise, like the mountains, like you did,
Yeah.
then you can actually hear that voice inside of you telling you what things that you haven't been listening to because there's so much noise out here that you can't even hear that voice inside of yourself.
Yeah. There's just no space to receive it when
Yeah.
we're so busy and so on the hamster wheel of what's next, what's next, what's next. I mean, we rarely take an opportunity to stop and appreciate our wins, our successes. We rarely take a
Yeah.
moment to celebrate because we're constantly, as a society, what's next? Always on this endless treadmill of pursuit of perfection, or the next big thing, or even like personal growth and development seems to have taken this turn of like, well, you can always be getting better. Well, again, I like to approach that from a different perspective, because this endless pursuit to become better means that you don't love and accept and appreciate who you are right now, which
Right.
is magical, first of all. And if you
Amazing.
can
Yeah.
appreciate that magic, right? But it's not to say that you're not going to change. It's not to say you're not going to evolve and grow, because you will. That's part of the human experience. You couldn't avoid it if you tried, and a lot of people do.
They do
I've
try,
been there
some
and
of
I have
them.
tried too.
Yes.
And you can try and avoid it, but it's coming whether you want it or not. And so if you want to be able to navigate that with the peace, the love, and the joy, rather than the pain and the suffering and the discontentment and the always striving, you can do it that way. And
Yeah.
that's so much more loving and gentle, to allow yourself to evolve naturally, as opposed to try and force it and
Yeah.
push yourself and try and become someone else, essentially. The way that I look at it is, you actually don't have to become anything or anyone else. You just need to be who you truly are. And it's in this very authentic being yourself, and whatever that expression looks like, allowing yourself to be expressed as your individual, unique, authentic self, allows you to tap into the peace, love, joy, happiness, you know, build those relationships with the people who are actually in alignment for you, right? The people who fit in your life, who love and accept you for who you are, instead of constantly trying to convince people, or, people please them into liking you, or, get validation and acceptance from people who don't actually love and accept themselves. So
Right.
it's this whole myriad of things that we're doing. But if we really ultimately can build that solid foundation with ourselves, built on wholeness, love, compassion, we can absolutely change our entire world. And it's not about becoming or
Right.
improving or being better. It's just about living in the state that you were meant to live in your
Yeah.
true nature.
Yeah. It's about allowing. I was thinking
Yeah.
this morning, and I was listening to someone on YouTube, as I often do. And I was thinking, you know, there's this one particular person that I listen to, and she talks about having a doctorate in do. Like, you do this and you do that, and you feel like you need to do. She goes, we're all doing all the time. And we feel like that's what we
Yeah.
have to do, is be doing something. And she said, you don't have to do anything. You just have to be. And this is the magic component to manifestation, right? Just learning how to
Yeah.
claim that it's done and know that it's done, and you don't have to do to get there. And
Yeah. And when that doing comes from that space, it's more powerful,
right. Well, and
right? So you're
I'm
not.
fascinated by this stuff, because it's like I felt like I was missing a piece of this. And this morning I had like
Mm.
this huge epiphany, because
Yeah.
there are lots of things that I love to do in my spare time, or just in life. I love gardening, I love writing, I love making my wire art, I love doing all these things. And I was thinking, why is it so difficult for me some days to do these things that I really enjoy doing? And then I'm thinking, because I'm listening to this stuff that says you don't have to do all the time. And then I thought, well, how can I look at this in a way where I still free myself up to allow myself to do the things that I love, while still viewing it as not doing the things, to get to that
Yeah.
place, you know? And I know that sounds kind of a little bit confusing, but I thought, what if I look at it like these are the things I'm just enjoy, and I can just do them because I enjoy them instead of it having to move me somewhere while the bigger
Right.
picture is already done, and knowing that. So it was a big epiphany for me today. And I hope that people can understand the message behind what I just said, and instead of allowing themselves to be confused about it, because I know it's a deep thought. It really is.
It's tricky. It's really kind of like the chop wood, carry water. You're not doing.
Right.
No one's saying don't do anything. But what happens if you be first
Mhm.
who you are, authentically
Yes.
you, and express and allow things to flow from this place, then the actions that you will take will be aligned with that outcome, that version of you that you are being. So
Right.
let's do like a really concrete example really quick, because I used to be a health coach. And so we all logically know that if we want to feel better in our bodies, and I'll say some really generic terms because I think then it will hit everyone, that we should choose wisely what we are putting into our bodies, right? Nourish our bodies well. And that's unique to everyone. And then the second thing is we should move our bodies. Our bodies are not meant to be stationary. So we should fuel ourselves accordingly, and we should move our bodies in ways that feel good to us. Okay. So I'm not saying like, you've got to go do CrossFit. Please don't go do CrossFit. But do things that feel good for you, even if that's just a gentle stretch, even if it's just a walk around the block. Find things that you enjoy doing. Find foods that you enjoy eating. And I don't mean sugary crap, but ones that actually sustain you too. Now,
Right.
you know what these things are. If you were someone who was already at the epitome of health, how would you be? This is actually made a post about this the other day. So like there's two steps. And one of them is be that person now. You don't have to do the thing, you have to first be it. And so they're like, well, how do I be it? And so my response to that was act as though you already have it, as you already are having that experience. Create that experience again in this now moment,
Yeah.
right? We're not pushing this out into the future. We're creating this experience now. And if I am the person who feels really great in their body, what am I doing? How am I acting as someone
Right.
who feels great in their body, who takes care of their body, whose body is set for longevity and energy and all of the things that I desire in line with my intention? And I'll also say here too, I'm not a big goals person, because the goal is like very much based on the outcome,
Yes.
which most often we actually don't have control over. So I am all for creating intentions. We can do that here in this now moment. I desire to be healthy and feel energetic in my body. How can I be that? And then what actions do I take that would be in alignment with that, right? That's where that little shift is, because now you're not doing just for the sake of doing. You're not doing, to prove yourself or to feel productive or, to keep up with other people. You're doing because it lights you the fuck up, right?
Right.
Because it's in
Exactly.
alignment with that experience that you are wanting to and are intentionally going about creating. So it takes that same thing that you're doing and just gives it an entirely different energy. So it's not even changing the thing. You can still do some of the same things, but if you do it with a different intention, you'll notice that the outcomes are different as well. And the journey is more enjoyable, and you're getting just so much more out of the experience. So it's really, it's really important to set that intention first, because if you are doing things in alignment with your intention, then the journey is actually fun. It should be
Yeah.
enjoyable. And yeah, okay, so we got to still do the dishes, but we can even reframe those things, because we get to do the dishes because we have
Yes.
nutritious food to eat. And if we can just remember even those things that we don't want to do. I mean, there's probably some people who like doing dishes, and it can be very therapeutic if you set your mind in the right space to create like a mindful exercise around it. But also, it's just part of the human experience. And so if we can appreciate, again, it creates contrast in our human experience. We can appreciate these little small moments and look at them from a different lens, a different perspective, one of love and gratitude, then I promise you'll see this love and gratitude just absolutely magnifying in all areas of life. And then it just is magical, right? Like it
It
just
it
so much
really
easier. It just
is.
flows. Yeah.
Steve and I just actually had this conversation a couple days ago, and I used to despise chores when I was younger. I was like, I didn't like dishes. I couldn't stand laundry because there's so many steps to laundry, right? And now I'm like, I love all of it. There's not one single chore that I do that feels like a chore to me. They're just things that I do, and I'm so grateful like to have a bed to make. Like, how cool is that? Because there's so many
Yeah.
people that don't have a bed. I have these hands and these eyes, and have legs and feet, and I'm walking around the bed doing the things. I am able physically to do those things. I have enough
Yeah.
breath that I can complete the job in one fell swoop instead of having to sit down and take. So there's so much gratitude and
Yeah.
love, like you said, that goes into these things that most people think of as just being really mundane, just kind of humdrum, boring
Yeah.
things to do.
Yeah. And yet we can make almost anything magical with the right outlook on it. And like, let's be clear here. I'm not talking about spiritually bypassing or, avoiding uncomfortable feelings.
Right,
Obviously, those are intended to be felt and experienced. They're not meant to be hung on to be resisted, to be stuffed, to be avoided, because those
right,
actually keep them all stuck. And we don't want that, right?
right.
That's not how we're intended to be. We're intended to flow. Our emotions are intended to be temporary, right? If
Yes.
you actually let them be, they actually just clear it right on out.
Yep.
It's actually your judgments and your stories, and the labels and stuff and the meanings that you attribute to it that really keep them stuck and hanging along. And if we can really let go of, like, I don't like doing laundry, right? That's just our personal preference. The laundry, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I guess you have some options. You could not do the laundry. There would be consequences. You could potentially, pay someone else to do your laundry. Like, there's things that you could do, but the laundry is not going away. It's just your personal preference that you don't want to do that. And so instead of making a big stink out of, like, this is just not what I would love to be doing right now, just creating space and allowing it, like you said, right? Allowing things to not meet our preferences every single time as part of the human experiences. And the more comfortable you can get with that little bit of discomfort, like, hey, things aren't going quite my way, or I don't, this is, I wish it was hotter. It's just arguing with reality. A lot of us, a lot of the time, say, like, it shouldn't be raining right now. I'm supposed to go for a hike, or like, it's May and it definitely shouldn't be snowing like it was this weekend when I was on my hike. Like, I would just be arguing with reality. It just is.
Right.
And I can save myself so much energy and time and really stay out of those negative spirals by focusing on what I could actually control. And it's not arguing with shit that happened already in the past, because you will not change that,
Right.
right? That only serves to keep you stuck in your suffering.
Yeah.
And because you deserve freedom and peace and love and joy, I implore you to come into the present moment, right? Take a couple of deep breaths and just release any arguments about what is or what was, and start fresh here right now. What do you intend to create?
Yeah.
What do you want to create today? What do you want to create right here in this now moment? What experience do you want to have? Because you really do get to choose. And if you're still not seeing that choice before you, it's likely that you need to just have regulate your nervous system and take care of you, nurture you, so that you can create the space to
Mm.
hear what's within and to take some nurturing, loving steps towards yourself. Might not come easy. Not all of us were taught how
Right.
to love and nurture and care for ourselves. Some of us didn't have really good role models. And besides that, and it's not about throwing shade on anybody, because I truly believe everyone is doing the best that they can with the resources and understanding that they have at any given moment. Just as we talked about before, when you're looking back and have hindsight's 2020,
Yeah.
but you didn't know then what you know now, because now you have more information.
Right.
And the same thing is true with the people that we learned from. They didn't know. We don't know what we don't know. And so, as we're ever learning, we're ever seeing things from new and different perspectives, we get to grow. We get to, stop the generational pass down of lack of emotional intelligence that has been so common. We can cut off those people pleasing tendencies. We can get rid of the conditioning that has us believing that we're never going to be good enough, or that we have to prove our worth and our value to other people through excessive amounts of doing.
Yeah.
The idea is even that we have to, you know, create our value in the world.
Right.
Like, if
It's
we can just let that
ludicrous,
go,
isn't
and
it?
again, right? Come back to that wholeness that is already you. And then start looking at, like, what do you want to create? Because you are a powerful creator. Whether you are intentionally creating the things that you desire, or a shitstorm around you, you get to move forward and do it things differently if you desire to. And I know that's can be a tough pill to swallow. I remember I had sort of like this holy shit moment in my relationship where I was, oh my God, I'm the common denominator in all of my problems. And thankfully, I did this without piling on the guilt and the shame,
Yeah.
which could and would be very easy to do in that sort of moment of realization, like, oh shit, like, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. Hello, Taylor Swift. Thank you for those lyrics. Um, but at the same time, recognizing that we are the creator, we are the one who has the power to change it for ourselves. Literally, no one else can. We
Right.
can't make someone else happy. No one else can make us happy. We get to choose how we respond. So the first step, I suppose, is like getting out of survival mode, because like I said, you got to get like critical thinking skills back on board so that you can choose
Yeah.
from the actual plethora of options available. And so if you're not seeing the options, it's probably just time for some inner care and some love for yourself. And if that does not come easily, find someone who can help you with this, right? We often will heal in relationships, and it's a slippery slope because we don't want to go into a romantic relationship looking for someone to fix or heal or complete us, because that's complete and utter bullshit. We are already whole. And
Yes.
so and it is our own work to do, because no one else can do this inner work for us. No one else can make you become aware, right, of what
Right.
you're not willing to see. And so, they reflect things to us, and we see them when we're ready or we don't. And that's just part of the journey. It's all okay.
Yeah.
But just because it's our own private journey doesn't mean we have to do it alone.
Right.
And so it can be really supportive to bring in trusted people into your world: mentors, leaders, coaches, therapists, just really trusted friends who allow the space for you to be you, for you to be human, to, express yourself unapologetically, authentically, as you are, as the freaking miracle that you are, and to mirror back to you the love and acceptance that you deserve simply because you exist.
Yeah,
And I know that
absolutely.
that space can be hard to find.
Yeah, and a couple things came to mind as you were talking. One is I've actually said to a couple different people lately, you get to take up space in this world. You are just as important in this world, in this life, as the person standing next to you. They don't get to make you feel like that you can't take up space. You get to take up that space. You deserve it.
Yeah.
You're enough just as you are in this moment. And then the
Mm.
second thing that came to mind is when you were talking about relationships. I've not had more than one marriage, but I have been in more than one relationship. And, they were until the one I'm in now. Thankfully, it's an amazing relationship. But the ones that I had previously were consecutive or word the word I'm looking for is gone, but progressively more abusive. Verbal abuse,
Yeah.
then verbal and physical, and then verbal and more physical abuse, and the last one. And find that I wasn't treating myself well inside of my own head. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, giving ourselves the
Mhm.
love and the appreciation. Well, when you're telling yourself you don't deserve better than that, and it can never be any other way, then how is that person going to know to treat you in a different way? And maybe they're incapable because everyone is at a different space.
Yeah.
Maybe they are incapable, but if you're incapable of seeing that you deserve better, then it's really difficult to step outside of that and realize that you can make a different choice that ends you up in a more beautiful place and a more peaceful place.
1,000%. And having been there in a relationship where it was very unhealthy, when I was in it, I didn't see so much that I had any struggles with my self-worth. It's only upon looking back that I can see how those self-worth doubts that I had were playing out. And so in case anybody's listening, I was like, well, I don't think I ever tell myself I don't deserve better, but yet you're still with someone who you're unhappy with and you're not actually experiencing whatever better, quote unquote, better is in your mind. There could be something below the surface that's just not in your awareness yet.
Right.
So for me, I was what I call like suffering from just a momitis, where I had thrown everything into raising my family. And I really wasn't sure who I was. I knew that the version of Christy that existed before having children was long fucking gone,
Right.
never to be seen again, like wholly transformed by becoming a mother and just irrevocably so.
Yeah.
And so I was floundering. I didn't quite know what I wanted. I knew I was feeling a little unfulfilled. I felt like I felt this incongruence, this stuckness, this calling, this pull. Like there's got to be something more.
Yeah.
And yet I wasn't sure what that was. I one day had this sort of like, it was probably around the same time as my other aha moment. I had this experience where I will relate like this something happened in my marriage. My ex said something to me in front of the kids that just threw me right aback. And it felt like when you're driving home in the car and you're just you're just driving. You're not like focused on the task. You got other stuff going on and you make it home and you think, I don't remember stopping at any of the red lights, but I made it home. Like I hope I stopped at the red lights.
Right.
But it's really just to say, like, I was so in another world that when this happened, I was like, how the hell did I get here where this behavior seemingly he thinks it's fine?
Yeah.
And that really forced me to look inward at myself, not because I deserve that. I didn't fucking deserve that. And if you're being mistreated, I want to make it very clear, you do not deserve mistreatment. It doesn't matter what you may have done or not done.
Right.
Irrelevant. Nobody deserves to be mistreated. And, ultimately, you do have the choice to stay, to see if you can fix it, if it's worth fixing, or to choose yourself. And I think ultimately the choosing yourself helps give you clarity on whether you should stay or you should go. That's something I talked about in one of my podcast episodes as well, because when you really know yourself, you first of all, you know where you end and others begin. So you know what's yours and what's not yours. This is part of building a solid relationship with yourself. You also know what feels correct for you. And this should feel, again, quote unquote, good. It should feel safe and, like it gives you life, not restricting or constricting or fear-based or shame-based. It shouldn't make you constrict inward. It
Yes.
should make you feel like you're expanding outward. When I met my current partner, I was like, this is the most bizarre feeling of like butterfly excitement and safety, like feeling like home at the same time,
Yeah.
like literally at the same moment. And so I just think it's such a beautiful paradox that we can experience the safety and the excitement. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I don't believe in living in an either or kind of world. This is not black and white. It's 8.1 billion shades of gray in between.
Yes.
And so let's like invite all of the full spectrum of experience and really, go out there and create the ones that we want. And if you're not sure what you want, which that was me too. I knew what I didn't want. I had a very clear visual on what I did not want. Like I didn't want to be yelled at. I didn't want to be sworn at. I didn't want to be looked down on, like all these sort of things. But unfortunately, the longer I kept dwelling on that, the more I got stuck in the loop of complaining, blaming, shaming, fault finding, wishing he would change. And you know what all that did was take everything off of me.
Yeah.
And that Sure, I suppose it felt somewhat comforting, but yet that turmoil was still there. It wasn't soothing any of that. It was only a temporary fix to say there's nothing I have to do. And I once heard it said, and it's maybe like a bit of a harsh way of saying it, but guilt is actually sort of like an excuse to not do anything. And
Mhm.
don't come at me.
That is pretty
It
harsh, but
is
it's true though.
so I want to soften that a little bit by just saying that the guilt feels like you're doing something.
Yes,
Complaining feels like you're doing something. Blaming feels like you're meting out justice where justice is due. It feels like you're doing something. And yet, none of them move the needle forward. They
right.
all keep you stuck in the exact same pile of shit. And we don't want that for you. And so ultimately, forgiveness is for you. Forgiveness is not for the other person. You don't even have to tell them. You don't even
Right.
have to talk to them. And I just also, forgiveness does not mean tolerating any further mistreatment. That seems to be some kind of religious story or something that you
Uh,
have to forgive the other person and forget that and forget. Okay, no, no, no. We know these brains, they are not going to forget that easily. And so forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's not about tolerating. It's not about letting it go, although it is about letting it go. It's not about letting it go with them. It's about letting it go for you,
exactly.
right? It's about setting down your burden, your pain, your suffering, the stuff you've been dragging along behind you in a very heavy sack.
Yeah.
You deserve to put that down. And you deserve to put that down because you are living and breathing today. So no one is exempt from this freedom that's available. Ultimately, you get to decide, you get
Yeah.
to choose, you get to create. It starts with that intention. What do you wish to intend for the day? What experience do you want to create in this now moment? And go do it. It's in the little things, it's in the little moments. Even in relationship, the little things are the big things.
Yeah.
And so getting clear, with yourself and what those little things that make you feel good are, and putting them into your day is going to change things like you wouldn't even recognize it. Like I would say, like, you know, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I would never have thought that I would be here where I am now. I was so stuck and so overwhelmed and so caught in the overthinking and the, yeah, oh my God, trying to figure out how I could make that marriage work when when I actually shifted and I got to know myself, it became so clear it just wasn't a match. There wasn't anything like, it wasn't like, oh, this is terrible and he's a horrible human being. And like, I don't carry any of that with me.
Yeah.
I just know it wasn't a fit. It was still not a fit. We're co-parenting. Uh, let's say we're like perpendicular parenting. We're not parallel parenting. It's an adventure. And, but it's not such a big deal. It didn't work out.
Right.
And what that did when I finally just was like, I don't, this is actually just really not aligned for me. It created space for what was so perfectly aligned for me.
Yeah.
And I managed to meet my current partner literally while running a marathon. I was not looking. I was already whole. I was at the point, and I think this is the point where magic happens, where I didn't need anyone or anything else. I
Yeah.
was completely self-sufficient and sovereign. And I actually was to the point where I was like, I don't even want to worry about someone else.
Right.
Like, I just wanted life to be simple. And then I would say in
Ta-da.
waltz, but actually it was more like we just ran beside each other for like 4 hours. But then I met him and it just it was so much easier. Like I think there's a lot of myths in the world about how relationships are just difficult.
Yeah.
And I want to invite you to recognize that first of all, life is this is more difficult already on its own than it often needs to be. But if your relationship is contributing to that or the source of life's challenge or life's challenges or your difficulty in life, just take it as an invitation, not to anything with a relationship actually, but just an invitation to look within
Yeah.
and see where your needs are not being met and see what you can come up with for a compassionate way for you to begin meeting those needs that does not necessarily rely on another person.
Right.
You can absolutely and should seek support from other people. But when we have an expectation that someone else can fix, mold, fill, help us, whatever, oftentimes we can be like outsourcing, and then it's kind of like the guilt thing where we feel like we're productive, but we're actually not looking at what needs looking at. So invitation to go inward, to let yourself be seeped in your wholeness and operate from that space, because that is you standing in your power. It's not you outsourcing, it's not you chasing or trying to create something out there in some distant future, at which point then you'll finally get to experience feeling good for once. You get to have it now.
Yep. Yep. It's a choice. I did another podcast interview with a lady, and she said someone once told her that we choose to be happy. And she said, I was so angry when he said that. And she said, so I set out on this massive, um, like adventure to look up
Yeah.
all of the things about that and prove him wrong. She goes, when I set out to do this research, I was doing it to prove him wrong. And she said, and what I
Yep.
actually did was prove myself wrong and prove him right. We do choose it. And that's such a
Yep.
powerful thing to know. It is.
It really is. That again, like that's you in the driver's seat of your
Yeah.
life. You get to decide. You are not just at the mercy of other people or circumstances or the world. You get to choose your response. And I know that some people will like semantically be like, well, what's the difference then? But your response is everything, right?
Everything.
You may not be able to manipulate the circumstance specifically or the reality of the situation outside of yourself, but you can 1,000% control and shift and change your perception of it, the way that you respond to it. And that is so important because your experience, you can't even avoid. Your experience is entirely put through your perspective, right? Your
Is.
beliefs, your mindsets, your past experiences is literally all going through this filter in your brain. Your reticular activating system actually just takes in the bits and pieces of information that it likes to connect them together, and it's like, oh, here's your version of reality.
Yeah.
Yet that person over there who hasn't suffered the same experiences maybe as you did that create painful points will not have the same emotional reaction to the exact same scenario, right? So it's so much built on every single moment, however many billions of moments, not even just in your life, but in your parents' life and your grandparents' life and all the generations before, that led us all here to this right now moment.
Yeah.
And if we can just, be there, be here now,
Yeah.
we can choose to create our happy. That's why my podcast is Create Your Happy, because it's a choice. You get to choose. And
Is.
yeah, that's triggering. That's triggering for some people who don't see that choice.
Yeah.
Again, that's that loving invitation to go within, because the choices are there, you just can't see them. And so
Yeah.
sometimes we need a little help, a little bit of guidance to help us create new awareness,
Right.
create new visibility, and to see the things that we just previously couldn't see. And that's amazing. Like I say, when you have new awareness and you see things from a different perspective, this is amazing. This is powerful. This is you being able to really choose and create with even more power.
Right.
So, it can feel daunting, but it's absolutely worth it. I know it's hard to look at our icky bits, right? Especially those parts
Yeah.
that, we believe aren't good enough, or we're shamed for being too much or too little, or, we've all had these moments when we're growing up, our emotions were too big, or our intellect was too small, or we made a mistake, God forbid, like humans do, and we were ashamed for it, we were embarrassed by it, and we have all of this baggage. And so if we can just start to allow it, like to actually just love on ourselves. I don't mean like I love how my arm jiggles because I haven't, because I had a shoulder injury and I couldn't do what I used to do. I'm not talking about like I love that, it's so great, but I'm also not shaming myself for where I am today. Like this
Right.
is this is where I'm at today. And so I can be someone who takes care of my body right here and right now. What does that look like? It's definitely not sitting here feeling bad about it. It's about accepting, allowing what is to be what is, and then moving forward with the wisdom and the, intelligence that we have to choose, to create, to set the intention, and to actually be that person right here, right now.
Yeah. Because when we do that, it creates room. It creates room when
Yeah.
we hold on so tightly to what
Yes.
is right now that is so glaringly obvious in front of our faces, and we don't allow ourselves to, think about some of these things we've talked about today. We don't allow the room for there to be another possibility, another way of looking at it, another
Yeah.
future in, another, way of being in our future. We don't allow room for
No.
that. So I think it's really, really, truly important to, you know, take a look at all of these things we've discussed today because they are profoundly important.
Will literally change your life from the inside out, right? And starting with this relationship that you're building, this loving, accepting relationship, guess what? That overflows, right? And then all of a sudden your relationships with other people are affected, and other people are thinking like, oh, look at her go. Okay, well, she's just doing her, and it's like a permission slip. And so other people are inspired and take action differently because they're watching you. Your children get inspired. And this is one thing that I really took out of this relationship, this lesson that I learned, was that my children weren't needing someone to, a perfect mom who would do everything for them. They needed a happy mom
Right.
who was well taken care of, who loved and accepted herself, so that I had the space to love and accept them as they are and not project my shit onto them.
Right.
Right? So that it could overflow, so that I can inspire them and give them permission to be wholly themselves.
Yeah.
But, however that looks, and not worry about what the world has to say about it. Like I say, the judgy McJudger pants of the world, they're going to judge you, but that doesn't have to touch you.
That's
When you
right.
know who you are, other people can say stuff and you're like, okay, like that. I feel actually bad for you. I actually had someone uh troll comment on one of my YouTube videos. Apparently, this gentleman did not like my nose ring and said it was a pure travesty because I did not have any natural beauty, so that was just exacerbating my ugliness issue, basically.
Oh my
And I'm just
God.
I actually, my heart goes out to someone who feels that way about
Yeah.
anyone else, because it's not about me. He doesn't even
No.
know me. It's about the hurt that he has inside. And so I actually responded and said, like, you know, thanks, but no thanks to your unsolicited comments. I actually like the way I look. And I'm sorry that you're hurting so much inside. And I'm sending you so much love, because honestly, happy people just don't do that.
They don't.
Right?
That's
They
right.
really don't. There's no need to criticize or bring someone else like, there just is no need whatsoever. Like, I go about my life and I see people do, like, listen, people are people and they're doing crazy shit out there and stuff that I wouldn't personally do, but
Yeah.
do I have to judge them for it? No, I can simply observe and say like, wow, look, that's so interesting. I think humans are freaking fascinating. I love
Fascinating.
watching reality TV because peopling in their natural element. I'm like, this is just so fascinating to watch. But I don't have to
Is
make it mean anything about me,
right.
right? I don't have
Exactly.
to judge them. Like, they're also free to go and do whatever kind of wild and crazy like, I'm here to have my experience, they're here to have theirs, and if they look different, that's cool. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's how the divine designed it, because it's about having all of the human experiences. They're not all for me, but
Right.
as a united consciousness, we're covering it all. And so
Yes.
how very interesting that someone is covering the wildest, craziest things that I would not even think about doing.
Oh,
I
right.
just think it's fascinating.
It is
So
fascinating. And there's something for everyone. And that's why when very early in our conversation, you said something about there not being any rules. And that is one of the
yeah,
things I love saying in this podcast is because there are no
it's
rules,
all made up.
you know?
It's all made
They're
up, all of
they're all
it.
made up. Somebody wrote that shit down and who made them
Yeah.
the freaking authority on it? You know, who made
Yeah.
them the authority? So I love that you said that. And I love that you
Yeah.
teach your kids that, and that it doesn't matter what other people think. And even if they say the craziest unsolicited shit to you, you can just be like, you know what? Thanks for sharing. I still know that I'm amazing and awesome, and it's not my fault you can't see
Yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm blinding you with my light over here. I mean, you know, I just, people are on their journey. And like I say, it's a
They are.
projection of what's within. And so when I see people making hurtful comments, I know that that's their hurt coming up. That's a protective
Absolutely.
mechanism. They're not, they're not actually trying to be assholes. They're actually trying to feel seen and heard
Yes, exactly.
because no one has given them that. And so, and also sometimes we humans, we can get addicted to the pain and the suffering and the, you
Yeah,
know, the tragic stories, and we can really over identify with that. And, you know, it's too bad. Do I want people to be happy and healthy and feel loved and seen and accepted? 1,000% I do.
absolutely.
But I can't make anyone else do it. I can point them towards them. I can show it what's possible, but I can't do it for them.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
Just encourage them to
you know,
embrace that. And that's why we did this beautiful conversation today to help. So someone is going to listen to this and it's going to be exactly what they needed to hear. And they're going to start looking inside of themselves and make changes and get curious about the possibilities of where that could take them. So I'm very excited. So thank you
and I
so
hope they're
much.
gonna also, yeah, and
Yeah,
I hope they're also gonna to take what you said, because actually that was really interesting that you mentioned that you're allowed to take up space. This is one thing specifically when you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, I had a friend of mine tell me, I had made a post and she had told me this was like one thing that I told her that completely changed the way she saw things. And it was that you're allowed to take up space, and just this idea that you are inherently valuable and worthy simply for existing. You are allowed to take up space, and especially for women, but also for men too. So I'm, you know, not saying only women, but women have been, you know, a lot of conditioning to stay small and meek and quiet and not speak up and not cause problems and not be too assertive because now we're bossy bitches. And, you know, there's just like so many rules that we're trying to navigate,
so many.
that this idea of having to be just small and not really heard, fuck that. You are
Yes,
allowed to
fuck
take up
that.
space, and
That's
your
right.
voice actually needs to be heard. And to tie this just back in for one last thought here, to previously, when you have your own story, you're 1 in 8.1 million, you're the only one that has your story to share. And I think it's so important that we share our stories,
Yes.
because when we share our stories, other people realize they're not the only ones. They're not alone. Other people have gone through it. Now, they may not be going through the exact same thing, but they've gone through something. That
Yeah.
there's something within their experience that allows them to relate and empathize and understand. And that's an opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be witnessed, to be validated, to be accepted for the human that you are, and to take up space, to use your voice to create a difference in this world, in your own personal world, but also as that ripples out and really, really has this massive effect in everything in the world. And this relationship with yourself affects not just other interpersonal relationships, but even, you know, these relationships with trolls on the internet, or your boss or your neighbor, or with food, or with money, or,
Yeah.
you know, with social media in general. This is such a powerful shift if you can allow yourself to take up space, allow yourself to be who you were meant to be, and to try and stay here now in this present moment. You have the power to change everything.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you are the power to change everything.
You are it.
Yeah,
You're
that's
the one you've been
absolutely it.
looking for, baby. You
Exactly,
are the
your whole
one.
life you've been right here the
Yes.
whole freaking time. It's pretty
It's
amazing.
hard to see yourself, right?
It is. It is. But when you
That's why it's
do,
so tricky.
but when you do, holy crap, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You can't unsee it. It's like, and every day you're like amazing yourself. It and just
Yeah.
it's so incredible. It really is incredible. And I love this conversation so much. I know it's been a little bit of a long one, so I don't even
Yeah.
care because I mean, I do care, but it doesn't bother me because it's such an amazing conversation and it's so much of what people need to hear right now. I really truly believe that. So thank you for this incredible conversation. Thank you for what you do and how you do it. And I'd love for you to tell everyone where they can find you. I'm going to put your links in the description box below, but if you want to just
Cool.
give a little blurb about that real quick.
Yeah. So thank you again for the creating the platform. I just think it's so, so crucial and important to get the stories out. And I do hope that other people will be inspired by even just a small nugget, because the small things are the big things. You
Absolutely.
can find all of my things that I mentioned and peppered throughout this conversation on my website at coachchristyholt.com. You'll find my social links and my podcasts and my books and my courses and my mentorship and all of my super fun freebies, my little sweary meditations and all the links, everything that you possibly need. You can all find all on my website. And I am most active on Facebook. So if you want to really interact, come join me on Facebook. Let me know where you came from so I don't miss your request, because there are a
Yes.
lot of requests from a lot of people and I'm a little behind. So
Yeah.
send me a message, engage on something. Let me know where you came from and I will be sure to keep an eye out for you.
I'm giggling because you keep using the word sweary and it's cracking me up so much because there's this guy and I can't remember his name, but he's on Instagram and he's like this yogi guy. But he's really he always talks about releasing all your fucks. You know, he's like
Oh, is
just
it Yogi Brian?
yes, maybe it is. He's got a kind of scruffy looking, yes. He cracks me up,
Yeah.
man. And that's just like yes.
It's like letting all of your fucks go to find instant zen, right?
Yes.
S- Exhaling all the bullshit.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely it's good. I love to be sweary, so I'm down with it. So thank you again,
There's
Chrissy.
power in our words,
There
right? There's power in
is.
our words.
Absolutely there
So,
is. So such a good conversation. I'm
thank
so
you
excited about
so
it.
much.
So thank you so much again, Chrissy. Thank you everyone for showing up and listening to this episode of Spiritually Speaking. I know you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I hope that it's giving so many of you something to think about and go, please accept the invitation to go inside yourself and do a little exploration and know that you are, you get to take up space in this world and you are enough just exactly how you are right in this moment. Messy hair, whatever it is, you are perfect exactly as you are right now. So thank you all. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will drop the links for Christy in the description box below. As always, I love you all, and I will see you on the next one.